Welcome to Season 1 of Ciara Talks, where we dive into the minds and methods of high performers. I'm your host, Ciara Louise, and in each episode we will explore just what it takes to think bigger and perform better. Whether you're here to elevate your business, your mindset, or just your daily habits, you've come to the right place. Let's talk high performance. Ciaran, a very warm welcome onto Ciara Talks, the podcast. I am honoured to have you on as a guest for my pilot season. Now, for anybody who may not already know, tell us, who is Ciaran May?
That's the million-dollar question. I ask myself that. I suppose I'm probably better known as the owner of Natural Resilience, which is a local company that helps business leaders create more health, wealth and freedom. But beyond that, I'm a very ordinary guy, very proud father, proud husband, and just an inquisitive student of life, I think.
What a fantastic answer. An inquisitive student of life. That you most certainly are. I mean, tell us about the workshops that you hold and the work that you do.
So it's changing. Natural Resilience is changing. It's changed a lot, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of my work is getting people to live in harmony with change. So I think change is ever present and omnipresent. And I have accepted that. And so Natural Resilience has changed significantly going into 2026. I suppose for the first time in 5 years of running a business, I feel confident to kind of charge more. I feel confident in what I can deliver and the value and impact that I can have in people's lives. And I'm launching a 12-month program for founders. And it's being labelled, and I believe it is a founder-first approach to scaling. So I think a lot of businesses grow, which is great. Yeah, I'm very passionate about local businesses doing well, but what is the cost of winning at all costs? A lot of founders scale their business and it looks great on paper, yet their mental health is in tatters. They're physically unwell. Their marriages, their relationships are on the rocks. And so I believe in like this holistic version of performance where not only are we measuring profit and loss sheets, but we're also measuring heart rate variability, sleep, quality of relationships, quality of life, and not just quantity of numbers in a bank account.
So you're shining the light then on the individual and the teams rather than just the company and the business.
On the people. I mean, the founder, the people within a business is its most important asset. And I think we run the risk of like having an oversight with regards to that because of AI and technology. You know, we are valuing systems, processes and frameworks more than the founder, more than the person. I'm very person-centric. I believe in human potential. And so I want to go back to basics, which is understanding yourself, understanding your people, and then getting yourself and your people aligned towards a vision.
Because I suppose if the founder isn't performing at 100%, there is no business. There is no organisation or operation to run then.
Yeah, but I think it was Jim Rohn, who was Tony Robbins' mentor, said that your business development won't outperform your personal development. I would add a caveat to that, which is your personal development won't outperform your health. So if you're pouring from an empty cup, you can't learn, you can't be creative, you can't upskill. And if you can't do that, then your business development stagnates. And so it is bringing it back to self. And for me, this is all to do with self-leadership. So you can't lead a team, you can't lead a business if you can't lead yourself. And how do you lead? Like, how do you increase your capacity to lead yourself? It's about knowing yourself. So for me, before you try and go out to the world, you have to go inwards first, which might sound a bit woo-woo, but ultimately it's true. Like, to understand your own beliefs, your own paradigms, your own drivers, your own values, your own vision. It's very, very important as a business leader before you try and understand other people's. Not even business, but the same applies to life. Like for relationships, how can you profess to understand and create something with somebody if you don't understand yourself first and foremost? Like, how can you love and respect someone if you don't do it to yourself? How can you profess to help somebody if you're sabotaging self? So I think in a very healthy way, it's being selfish, or is it being selfless? But I just believe that the answer lies within.
Absolutely. And you're completely right there as well on what you're saying, that you need to look and do the inner work and fill up your cup, because if you don't, how can you perform? How can you run a business? How can you love your family? How can you be true to yourself if you're running on empty to perform from all of these outlets. I know we had a conversation just before we began to film, and I believe you've done quite a lot of deep diving for your own inner work and inner journey and self-resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Could we dive into that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was unintentional, and it just came to, like, I think life is a series of peaks and valleys. I think you learn a lot from the peaks. You arguably learn more from the valleys. You learn more about yourself in the tough times. I suppose in 2020, I started being a bit more intentional with that. Went to therapy for the first time, went to psychologists, both clinical and sports psychologists, went on different retreats, from well-being retreats, meditation retreats, went on plant medicine retreats. And this was all I suppose I wanted to understand myself a bit better. Why had I got to 30-something years of age? Why were my beliefs and paradigms the way they were? What formed me? What shapes my behaviours and habits? You only know what you only know. So this was an opportunity to get to know myself a bit more. Life can sometimes feel quite chaotic, quite fast, and we never really take time to look inwards. You know, it's just we're reacting to life. We become a slave to other people's emotions and external events. And so I wanted to go inwards to see what I'm capable of, who I am, beyond the titles and the usual superficial stuff. And it was a massive positive journey, tough at times, because I believe in the expression, the bigger the light, the bigger the shadow.
Yeah.
So as your awareness increases, your awareness of your shadow side increases too. But off the back of that, I suppose, going inwards through the help of practitioners for a couple of years, I would say I became a better person, better dad, better husband, and as a result, a better business owner.
May I ask, was there a turning point that pushed you or helped you with that decision to dive deeper into yourself, or maybe it was just general curiosity?
Yeah, so from 2008 till 2020, I was in the police, which wasn't really the done thing from a young lad from West Belfast. So I joined the police, and in 2016 was diagnosed with PTSD. And I thought, well, I'm not going to heal myself in the same environment that made me sick.
Absolutely.
And so I made a very tough decision. It seemed like a tough decision at the time to leave. It was probably tougher to leave than it was to join, because by the time I left in 2020, I had a mortgage, I had a marriage, and I had 2 kids. And so I decided to leave, but ultimately I wanted to cut the cord. You know, so a lot of people struggle with sense of identity. I didn't want to go through that battle. So as opposed to struggling with a sense of identity, I needed to be confident that I had the capabilities to have a career outside of policing. I had no education really. I had to, self-educate. But that forced me to look inwards. That was, I suppose, my step into going to and doing ayahuasca. And it was all unorthodox and unconventional, but it worked for me. And I want to make that clear. I do things that I know work for me. So I do sea swimming because I know it regulates my nervous system. I go hiking in the mornings because I know it regulates my nervous system. But it's not for everyone. I just found things that worked for me and made me a better person. And I think as a guy, I'm 6'3". I was on the Northern Ireland powerlifting team. I'm covered from the neck to my ankles in tattoos. I was brought up that boys don't cry at all. So I genuinely didn't cry from I was about 6 or 7 until I was probably 36, 37. Because I thought, guys don't do this. We don't ask for help. We don't show stress. We don't show any form of vulnerability because that will be preyed upon. That's weakness. But going inwards allowed me to see that it's a strength.
Yeah.
To be able to identify your emotions, whether it's stress or courage or positivity or anxiety. Regulate yourself. Even the ability to know I can regulate myself quite quickly. And also pick up on other people's emotions so that you can help them and be, put your arm around somebody else and help them through a tough time.
And it's that level of intuitiveness that we need to make that connection with other people as well in a world that has their faces in screens.
Yeah.
It's that connection that we need. I mean, you mentioned plant medicine there, and I'm wondering, was there a connection between that emotional release that you mentioned you had around 36 years and the plant medicine, or were they two separate?
I think probably in and around that time. I can't remember if there was a sequence of events, but that was I'd never taken anything like that before, so I went for the right reasons. I'd studied, and there was people that I respected, like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, Aubrey Marcus, people that were successful, but also had a level of self-awareness that I looked up towards.
Yes.
And they had been, I suppose, a level of self-inquiry or being curious around their own self. And so I went literally just I wanted to know more about myself. And it was tough. I'm probably romanticizing it to say, if I look on paper, I feel as if there was a quantum leap in my own awareness, which happened at that specific time. But in order to me to do that, I had to realize that I'd been the master of my own demise in many ways. You come face to face with your shadow side, as in like the behaviors that are counterproductive, and had to work through all that, which was good. It was a positive experience. But yeah, it allowed me to, I suppose, when I talk an emotional release, being more emotionally mature is how I think my emotional intelligence increased. I probably had more confidence to say to my wife, for example, I don't understand this, or this is causing me stress, or even something as simple as, this has caused me stress, I'm feeling a certain way, I'm going to go to the sea tomorrow to regulate myself so that I can get back into a grounded version of me again. So I was able to join the dots of my behaviour and how I think and how I feel and how I act. It allowed me, I suppose, to piece together many aspects of my own psyche.
Wow. I mean, I know for myself personally, and I'm sure anybody at home watching this would love to know more about your plant medicine experience. It is something that I think was a delicate topic for many years there, and seen to be just something for the hippie and spiritual community. And now people are becoming more open to alternative medicines. And I mean, you said the word holistic, which generally means mind, body, spirit. It is the whole system working together for the body to work and be productive as it should be.
Yeah.
I would have a huge interest in knowing more about your experience through the plant medicines, if you're open to,
of course,
having that conversation.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I mean, everything was new. It was a new environment. There was shamans. I didn't know I'd never heard of the word shaman. There was shamanic music. There was, the environment was key. Drums. But essentially with ayahuasca, it looks like a shot of red wine, and it contains a substance called DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, which is produced naturally in the pineal gland of the mind, and it's at its highest levels when we dream, but also when we're born and when we die. And ayahuasca is really interesting in that it comes from 2 or 3 different plants within the Amazon, but combined, they all produce this DMT and allow you to digest it in a certain way. So I took this thing, basically not knowing what it was, and it's hard to describe. I mean, you almost go into a dream state, and the first night was almost like entering into that dream state. What it done for me, I suppose, was to heal a lot of previous trauma, and also to open me up to new ways of thinking, new ways of feeling. You have the beauty, you take it every night for a couple of nights, and then in the morning, there's what's classed as an integration. So you tell the people in the room, like the shamans and, different psychotherapists, what you experienced. It's a lot of symbolism at play, and they will decipher it to you and ask you questions, and a lot, what resonates, you'll feel that it resonates, and you'll take from it what works. And I have to say, like, I came home without a doubt a better version of me. I was never religious at all. I would probably, I say I would have a spiritual experience if that's the way, probably the best way to articulate it, but it goes beyond words. Like, a lot of it is hard to describe using our language, because our language doesn't support what you experience. And the best word that I've found to describe it is ineffable, which is, there's no words to describe this in our language. A lot of it was hard to describe because you're going inwards, deep into the subconscious, deep into the psyche. But if you're lucky, which I was, it allowed me Like I would say to people, I experienced a deep level of love for myself for the first time, you know, as a man in his mid-30s at the time, like a deep level of love, self-compassion, and then was able to give that out to my kids and so on, you know. So it was a very positive experience for me, but I it's not for everyone, you know. It isn't for everyone. I was very lucky that I kind of came across it at the exact right time in my life, and have benefited as a result of it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And do you feel like then after your plant medicine experience that your life took a different trajectory? I know you mentioned there was a quantum leap, so maybe it was more of a jump forward than a turning point?
I felt as if it was the end of one version of my life and the start of another cycle of living, so to speak. It allowed me closure to confidently close a chapter in my life and begin another one, to be open to not knowing what's next, to like surrendering to the next chapter, going all in, you know, emotionally, physically, mentally. It was, you know, you could say it was like a rebirth in many ways of this newer version of me. A bit like the metamorphosis from a caterpillar to a butterfly, you know. That experience was a bit like the messy middle and the closing of that chapter, and I feel as if I progressed and came out a better version of me, and I've no doubt that that cycle will come again, you know, that change cycle. But it definitely, what it done from a superficial point of view was, because I was able to kind of love and respect myself, really care about people's opinions in the nicest possible way. So I think a lot of people are afraid to start a business or grow a business or start a relationship or end a relationship or whatever it may be out of fear of other people's opinions. And in the nicest possible way, it made me respect my opinion so much that other people's became obsolete. Like I would have really, really worried about other people's opinions back in the day of, I post this on social media, what will this person think? If I wear this, what will that person think? And so I was able to just finish with the people pleasing and the worrying about other people's opinions and stay true to myself. You know, I feel as if I accepted myself and went into that position of authenticity to the best I knew it, and was able to just continue on my own path. Felt very comfortable in my own path and life off the back of it.
With the weight lifted of other people's opinions?
Yeah. I said, like, you can pick it apart. I mean, I suppose for 12 years previous to that, I woke up every day and looked under my car for a bomb. Do you know what I mean? Being in the place. So I was living in a vibration of fear for 12 years unconsciously, and in a state of alertness, you know, a state of panic. But panic's maybe the wrong word, but you were always on.
Yeah.
You know, you were always on. You were sucked into like the worst of the news, thinking, oh God, I'm going to get caught up in this and work. You were seeing the worst of society. Like there was a heaviness, there was an alertness. And then I feel as if when that journey allowed me to go into a vibration of love, which was much superior to this, arguably both need to exist, but I feel as if I served my time living there and kind of looked forward with excitement about living the next part of the journey.
I mean, it's highly likely that you learned your lessons then.
Totally.
In that energy or frequency of fear, and now you're in this energy of love, not repeating these lessons that maybe you had to learn. I believe that we all have a set of lessons that we will continue to repeat until we learn, and then we can progress forward with the next step.
Natural resilience would not exist if it wasn't for that chapter, that 12 years chapter, but ultimately it wouldn't exist. Like, it gave me so much life skills. You know, it was a great university. I progressed so much as a human being, upskilled so much, you know, from independence to get my first house, to learning how to drive, to learning how to communicate with different people from different backgrounds and different cultures, to leading people and teams, to making decisions under pressure. You know, a lot of people have their perception of the police and other frontline services, but you learn so much skill, like to be able to communicate or de-escalate another human being when there's chaos going on around you. That's an amazing skill that you can bring to the family unit, that you can bring to the corporate world. Just your ability even to show up every day in your uniform and go to work, you know, just like that consistency and discipline, I think is a massive net gain in today's society.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you've an NLP as well.
Yeah.
Does that translate from then working in the police force into the path that you're currently on?
Yeah, so I came across the NLP in policing because you were interviewing people and trying to pick up on body language and what words meant and why. And
Of course.
what I loved about NLP, so I studied sports psychology as well, and I love sports. NLP is my style of learning. It's very practical. You know, it's you learn reframes and different models, but you can apply them there and then. And I said to you beforehand, I can learn stuff quite fast if you show me how to do it, or if I can see it being done. I get overwhelmed by loads of theory and, you know, loads of information. And NLP was very practical. And I just enjoyed it, you know. And I remember somebody asking me, what are you world class at? I know I can go into any room and get on well with the vast majority of people in there. Like, I've always been a people person. I've always been able to connect with people. And NLP just allows you to make sense of the information you're getting back a bit more than probably what I would have been able to do.
And connection seems to be a dying art in today's world as well, where people have this, it's like an overall disconnect.
Yeah. I'd said to you before I read something recently that the opposite of addiction is connection. I'm big into community building. I'm big into human connection. I think it's such a pivotal life force. And like, if you look at the 4 pillars of health, or even from performance, if you look at like that Maslow style pyramid, like the foundational aspect is psychological safety, but that's underpinned by mental, physical, emotional, and social health. We as human beings need relationships. We need social interaction, you know, and I think COVID proved that many people, you know, the material stuff went to the wayside. Like, grandparents just wanted to be with their grandkids. Parents just wanted their kids at home. We crave connection, and we try to facilitate that through the likes of Zoom and online bingo. But our core being was, we want to share experiences with other human beings. We've always done that through the evolution of humankind. We've thrived in tribes. We've thrived in communities. And I think we stand at the threshold of a very, very important fork and you know, crossing the roads of human history. And I think we need to choose to be more human, and to really go back to the art of conversation, you know, emotional intelligence, picking up on people's unconscious signs and non-verbal cues, to be empathetic and to support them. And because without that, what are we? You know, we are going to become zombies, you know, just emotionless, comfortably numb, lonely zombies. And it is going that way. Ireland, in a recent study, came out as the loneliest country in Europe, which is bizarre because we're known for our hospitality and the gift of the gab. That's not, we're quite rural. But even at that, you know, more people, we are spending less time with other human beings. Less people are getting into relationships. Our time with friends is becoming shorter. You know, it's very important that we never overlook the very thing that made us as human beings what we are today, which is a thriving economy and, you know, a great collection of people. It is learning from each other's expertise. It's having, you know, really good conversations. It's sharing information, sharing experiences. So it's something I'm passionate about, which is bringing people together, essentially. And
creating that sense of community.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just made me think of, I remember my grandfather saying to me, he remembers the time when you'd leave your house and leave your front door unlocked, and you wouldn't think twice about it because you knew your neighbours. There was that connection there, that you knew the people around you.
Yeah.
But I suppose now, with the amount of distractions, and I suppose as well the connection to the great big world out there, you're not so honed in on the people who are right beside you because you've got access to other people in other cities and other countries, and even not connection as such as in talking with, but I don't have to look at you because I can look down here and look at something else.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of breaks that barrier of the energetic connection as well that everybody craves on some level, whether it's consciously and they're aware of it or subconsciously. We all have that craving for that energetic one-to-one connection, not like on Zooms or on your phone. That being in the presence of somebody else has, I know you spoke about this in your recent TED talk as well, about how it can increase longevity.
Yeah, totally. So there was a study done by Harvard University, the study on adult development,
yes,
which has been running for over 80 years, and it went around the world's different blue zones, which essentially is these areas that have been identified where there's more centurions, in this particular area. So you had Japan, Sicily, California, different areas around the world, and they went in and studied like why. Was it diet? Was it environment? Was it sunlight? But all these places had one thing in common, which was connection. So they all prioritized community, and so people, whether they were 80, 90 or 100, they had friends. They had a community of people, they did gardening together, they went walking together, they cooked together. And we crave that. It does allow us to live more fulfilled lives. It gives us purpose. And when we have a purpose, we can go through a lot, we can live longer, we can do uncomfortable things, we can express our potential, but we need a purpose. And I think we need other people to shine a light on what our purpose is.
To help guide as well, and then to validate the purpose too. I know that's not a need, but it is something that helps us with growth.
Yeah, but we're all craving acceptance. You'd say it, we do crave acceptance. We want to fit into, if we all have our own individual piece of the jigsaw, like it's all well and good and it can be a brilliant piece, but ultimately we want it to slot into something bigger than ourselves. And this is why people seek something bigger than themselves through religion or through community groups or whatever it is, but I believe every human wants to feel part of something bigger than themselves. And so they will do anything for acceptance. Even when you look at like paramilitaries, for example, they know that young men are craving that acceptance, and so they will bring them in and be the father figure, the big brother figure, but for their own gain. That's why it's so easy for young men to get caught up in gangs and different groups, is ultimately these people are preying on young people's desire just to belong to something, particularly if they come from broken homes or, broken upbringing. So I do think we thrive in community, and good communities is almost like fertile soil. If you put people in a good community, they will grow, because they have the support of other people. They'll be nurtured by other people. They will have attention and focus kind of put on them, given an opportunity to grow towards their potential.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that saying I've heard so many times, your network is your net worth. But if you apply that then to life in general, your network is the capability to grow and expand, and you will co-align with your environment. You're going to thrive in it, or you're not, depending on the person that you are and the people that you have in your circles.
Totally. One of my favourite sayings is by James Clear. He said that environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behaviour. So I believe in success by osmosis. You hear that quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend your time with. I totally believe it to be true. I think when you put yourself in rooms where the conversations are different, where they're about growth, where they're about authenticity, support, you only develop as a result of that. When you're in rooms where it's the world's gone to tatters and this is wrong and that's wrong, like it's almost, if you hear a lie often enough, you'll believe it to be true. So we do soak up all this information, and then it calcifies and starts to form our beliefs. So I think when people's challenging your beliefs and supporting you and asking the right questions, and you see success, and you see that, I know some hyper successful people in both sports and business, they're all very ordinary people. Like a lot of them grew up in work class areas, worked exceptionally hard, overachieved, and they're very humble that they're normal. When you see that, a pathway exists. That these people are very similar to you. They've just held themselves to certain standards. They've had a certain work ethic. They've got a certain amount of help, but ultimately they are a very normal human being, just like you. So I draw a lot of inspiration from that.
And would you see a common thread then with these higher performing people, that they're in groups of other higher performing people, that the circles that they surround themselves with would be at a certain caliber maybe?
I think they always find themselves in good rooms eventually. I'm not saying they all started off that way. They've all went on a journey, but like you go to certain events now in Northern Ireland, you'd see the same people. You go on the same kind of entrepreneur retreats or workshops, you see the same people. So I do feel as if lights find other lights. I remember somebody saying butterflies can't speak caterpillar language. You tend to find that these people do find each other in some way, shape or form throughout their journey. I think one thing in common is they become more pernickety or more attuned about who they spend time with and who they bring into their circle. because they start to realize that the impact a bad apple can have, the impact on somebody quite negative can have. And so they will actively seek out forward thinkers. That's why, I'm learning golf at the minute and I've no interest in golf, but I just know a lot of forward thinking, exceptional people go and play golf. I tend to think birds of a feather flock together. Absolutely. It is, I don't know if it's a magnetism thing, but these people tend to find each other. And I think it's because the conversations are different and people find their tribe. They go into a certain frequency and find others in that frequency. And, it's almost like that law of attraction where I'm attracted to your vibration, your conversation. It inspires me and I want to be part of that.
Well, like attracts like, as the saying goes. And as you said there, the law of attraction, we are going to be attracted to things that are vibrating at a similar frequency to you, whether people want to brand that as woo-woo or believe it or not.
Yeah.
It is one of the laws of the universe.
Yeah.
We will attract in people and situations and things that are of the same output as us in both negative and positive respects.
I believe so. I remember the law of attraction. I remember reading it, actually quite skeptical of it initially.
Yes.
And a lot of people say the book The Secret changed their life. I personally didn't really enjoy it. I've preferred other books, but I remember the one thing that made me look at it a different way was it's not, law of attraction isn't what you want, it's who you are, and I was like, right, okay. So it puts the owner, I think a lot of people were like, read that book and then all of a sudden they were writing down on paper they wanted to win the lottery, but they never bought a lottery ticket, where it's back to self. And I love the phrase personal responsibility is the cornerstone of personal development. So it was, okay, if I want to be successful, I need to find successful people, model them, see what they do well, what decisions do they make, how do they carry themselves, who do they spend time with, what rooms are they in, and learn from them, which was the avenue I took.
And it's taking that action step, isn't it? You can sit in your bedroom and go, I want the man or woman of my dreams or job of my dreams or whatever it is. It is not going to come and knock on your bedroom door.
No.
Realistically.
I think you have to be proactive. I think you can be playful with it. I think, life can be a bit of a game and you can be playful with that game, but ultimately you have to be courageous and take decisions and go in directions and learn skills that you've absolutely no idea about.
Yes.
But you have to, I think every action has a reaction, and when you take actions in alignment with the version of yourself that doesn't exist yet, but that can exist, for me, that's what manifestation is. It's about having a vision of who you could be, of the impact you could have, of how you could show up in your relationships, what, a really healthy, high-performing version of you looks and feels like, and then taking actions in alignment with that. And it's a bit maybe like faking it till you make it at the start, but the opposite is also true. I think a lot of people take actions in alignment with an outdated version of them, or of a version of them that, because of other people's expectations, my father expects me to behave this way, my wife expects me to do this. So again, it comes back to self, knowing yourself, knowing your own values, knowing your own visions so that you don't become part of somebody else's, and ultimately having the confidence and courage to take actions in alignment with that higher version of you.
And behind that, that's where growth lies. Totally. You need to get past the projections of the exterior world and what everybody else is putting onto you and expecting you to be.
Yeah, I agree. So it's, for me, this all comes back to self-awareness. It really, really does. I am so intrigued with the world of performance. I am so intrigued by it. It's traditionally been very results driven, and it always will be. It always will be. But when you go beyond the results, when you see somebody improving over a long period of time and they make peace with the journey as opposed to just the end result, they become a far better man or woman, a far better human being. But their ability to do that all comes back to self. They've made a choice. They have a vision for themselves. They've committed to the ups and downs of the path ahead and ventured into it. But that all, I think that comes with time. It comes with experience. And if somebody is lucky enough to go inwards and work out more about themselves, and I think once you do that, you can start to express yourself a bit more.
See, the guest that I spoke with yesterday said something very similar. He spoke about success at one point being the things that you want and getting the car, buying the watch, building the house, all of those superficial, successful things. And then eventually you'll hit a point where you go, okay, now what? And it forces you to look inward if you haven't done the shadow work and that personal integration that you have done, what is the top really? Because it's not big house on the hill.
Yeah.
It's not the flashy car. It is, well, what would you answer that question with actually?
So I am lucky, very blessed to have a really, really incredible network of people in my life and a really, really good community and very strong connections. And I had dinner with a guy who shall remain nameless, very successful recently. And his wife died last year. And we had dinner. And he's come out the other end of his entrepreneurial journey. You know, he's retirement age, has made a lot of money, more money than we could probably comprehend. Very successful company, very successful entrepreneur. And that conversation, I felt like it's very, very timely to me. You know, he had said, Ciaran, you're ambitious, you're driven, you have a young family. And he went on to say how he lost millions, he made millions, he had a life that he once only dreamed of. But when his wife died, he realised, well, none of it's worth it, really. And his whole thing to me was, you know, be present on the journey. Make sure that you're taking your wife and kids on this journey with you. Don't be moving the goalposts. Don't be saying, you know, yes, I'll be present at home and I'll do the school run at the end of the month or when I get time off for Christmas. Like, integrate those moments constantly throughout the week, because ultimately your success is that little unit you've created. And it was very timely for me, because I would be quite a passionate person. If I go into a project, I go all in. I need to have skin in the game. I need it to light me up. I need to ruminate on it. I need to take action on it. I take a lot of energy from that. But I need to be aware that I'm ultimately doing that for my family unit, you know, for us to progress, for us to have experiences that we perhaps didn't have when we were kids. So my version of success, I consider myself successful, not by the Western philosophy, but the fact that I married my childhood sweetheart. We have 2 very healthy kids. Our home is our little safe place. You know, it's not a mansion, but it's a home. Everyone's got a bedroom. There's a Christmas tree at the minute. Like, we're coming up to Christmas. So that's my version of success. And I kind of know that if my business was to crumble tomorrow, I've got everything I need and I would go again. And I would be confident that I've got the skills to go again, which is quite liberating.
You've got your foundation and your support there no matter what you tend to do. How beautiful is that?
And I feel I didn't always have that. You know, childhood, it felt as if I was treading water. And now I feel like I'm not treading water. I've got that support. And I think when a person has the foundations in place, when they've got the base, you know, that's when they can climb up the pyramid. But you need to have those strong foundations. And for me, it's my home life, my family life. It's the fact that we're together, and I know I can go out and face the big bad world and make tough decisions and take on extra responsibility and make mistakes and have a bloody nose at times, you know. And there's been loads of painful mistakes on the business journey, from, you know, with HMRC and like not understanding VAT when it came, and you know, things not working out at the time, but ultimately you deal with it, you regulate, and you go back into your safe place again, your foundation, you recharge and you go again. And for me, having that is my success.
Yeah. And you mentioned bringing your family, integrating them into your journey. I suppose my question here is, have you found that challenging, or has that been an easy thing to do, or is there challenge in that? Because then it's not just you bowling forward, for lack of a better term. You're taking your family with you, so they're not left.
I think there's levels to it. I mean, my wife and kids come to all my events, and it's very important to me that my kids are there. I want this to be normal to them. I want conversations around personal development and business development to be their norm. My son is very entrepreneurial. He's 12. You know, took him to school this morning where we were listening to a podcast. A friend of mine was on talking about business. I love that. That being said, me and my wife are very yin and yang. You know, she is very grounded, very maternal, very quiet, but quietly confident. I'm the balloon. You know, I'm the passionate person that will jump into things two-footed. She's the string, and she'll bring me back again, and both works. You know, I think we need both. So I think we've been together a long time, and I think over that time we've understood that we're 2 individuals that have committed to a relationship, and we both have to be our authentic selves, and we've both different drivers and different things. My wife Stacey her number one value in life is the kids.
Yes.
You know, and I suppose I'm pushing myself in business for her and the kids. It takes, again, it takes conversations, it takes time, it takes mistakes. We got together when we were 18. In relationships, there's no textbook, so you learn. I mean, we're both coming 40. You learn all these things with time and mistakes and experience. But I think how we navigate it is an acceptance as our like a self-acceptance, and then we accept that we're both very different. And so I'm quite compartmentalized. Like, I will push hard, but now I know to be able to communicate to my wife, I'm pushing hard, I'm launching a project, but I've booked us as a family a long weekend in Donegal at the end of it. This is what the dates are. Give me a bit of leeway. Just trust me. I need to go and do A, B, and C. Here's why. But we'll switch off over here as a family. And, you know, and also, like, how can I support you during that? So it's just, I suppose, developed over the years that it's easier to integrate. My wife gives me a lot of freedom to be myself. She knows that I am that passionate person that needs to have something, like something to overcome, something to do, something to grow. But likewise, she wouldn't be too quick to say, right, never mind. I remember the first talk I ever done, my first solo event. I sold out the Balmoral Hotel, like January, about 4 years ago. I did my own event called, what did I call it? Awaken the Power Within or something like that. And I think like 150 people turned up in this big room in the Balmoral Hotel. And I suppose it was me being able to express things that had a big impact on my life. It was great. Well, in retrospect, it was crap compared to, you know, because you improve every year. I thought it was great at the time. Yeah. But when I look back, it was probably crap. But I came home and my wife had a bottle of champagne. She was like, well done. Like, it was fantastic. And I had a glass and with cheers. And she was like, now, don't forget you're on the school run tomorrow. You know, back down to earth again. Yeah. I really appreciate that, actually. That keeps me grounded. Needed. Yeah.
And you find then the dynamic that works for you both. And I know that there is an entrepreneur watching this right now that needed to hear what you've just said. That balance of the, right, I need to push hard. That, I suppose, communication is what I mean. That if these people, right, we're in it for the long run. Yeah. That communication needs to be there. We need to be on the same page and moving towards the same goals. And how can you, if I haven't said to you, this is where I'm going right now, this is what I'm doing, you know, I need you to hold the fort. And then at the end, here's our reward. Yeah. You know, something to look forward to then at the end of that. Yeah.
My wife could have a completely different view of this. It works in my head.
No doubt she does.
But I think it's the balance of the masculine and feminine and the yin and the yang. I'm probably quite comfortable in my masculine. She's very comfortable in her feminine. But when they come together with a bit of communication, I think we create a harmonious home for the kids, which is success for me.
Mm-hmm. So, Ciaran, before we wrap this up, I've got one last question for you. Okay. For any young, we'll say entrepreneur, but for anyone at home watching this that is feeling a little bit lost in life and looking for direction, knows that they have something to offer the world and more to give, what advice would you like them to take from this conversation today?
It's a good question. I think they're probably ahead of 99% of the competition. The fact that they are knowing that feeling of, you know, that's the hero's journey, that's the call to action, that is, I'm worth more, I've got more to give. So I would say listen to that and explore it. For me, it's leading from the heart, but thinking things through. You know, follow that intuition, follow that feeling, but seek out advice. And I find the business community in Northern Ireland in particular very, very helpful. Like, you messaged me today to say, Ciaran, I'm launching a new podcast. Will you drive from Belfast to Derry to be on it? And I said yes with no hesitations. I said yes with no hesitations because I've asked the same of other people and they've said yes with no hesitations. Mm-hmm. Before I entered the business community, I probably thought, oh, it's going to be every man for themselves, dog eat dog, you know, cutthroat, it's anything but. I would say reach out to people, ask for help, ask for advice, and I'm quite confident that you will get it. And that advice from the right people will make the journey a hell of a lot smoother for you. Reach out to me. Reach out to you.
There you go. Absolutely amazing. Ciaran May, it has been an honour and a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Ciara Talks. If you loved this conversation, then share it, tag us, and let us know what your favourite insight from today was. Each season, the guest with the most amount of views will be invited back on for the next season, so your support could help bring them back here again. Sponsorship opportunities are now open, so if you or your brand feel aligned with Ciara Talks, then reach out at admin@ciaralouise.life. I'll see you all at the next episode.